Hi there, and welcome to Providence, Rhode Island. I'm coming out of Warwick on the 37 West, and I'm going north onto the I-295. This is my morning commute. I'm at a different hotel now by the airport, which is a little closer to work. It's about a 20-mile drive one way. And this connector onto the I-295 is usually a mess if you leave the hotel at 7:30, which I did, or 7:20. I usually get out by about 6:50 or something to avoid this, or 6:45 and get to work early so I can come back early and avoid this again. But today I didn't do that. I was happily ensconced in a relaxing mode this morning and didn't want to deal with all this. I was going to get breakfast at the hotel for free, but the breakfast has been canceled for whatever reason. I think the chef didn't show up, so I did get a muffin from Cumberland Farms. This is a Cumberland Farms berry yogurt muffin, which is pretty darn good. I get them for people at work sometimes to eat, and they seem to like them. So anyway, this has a long entrance ramp onto the I-295 off the 37 connector here, but people don't seem to use it. They just want to kind of go left immediately off this thing. And you can see that our fall weather here is good for today. We've had 2 or 3 days of rain. It rained all weekend. This is the first good day of blue sky, and the weather here in New England is crazy. The storms yesterday were severe. It was like, my friend called it a monsoonal day. And then suddenly you wake up and you can see everything's wet from the rain, but the sky is blue and it's perfect out. So it's about 54 degrees out. You can see the miles on my truck are picking up. I bought this thing in March with about 152,900 or 153,000. This thing has almost gone 10,000 miles in 8 months. And the whole reason is I can't get cheap hotels up near where I work. So I have to drive 20-30 miles each day to the airport. Okay, well, these people here are using the on-ramp here. This ramp actually goes a quarter of a mile. And there's always lovely trucks on this thing. Huge trucks. We're not talking a little box truck, we're talking full 18-wheelers. And they're never in a good mood. So I've learned that if I keep going, I'll probably get smashed by a truck, depending on if these people get out of the way and if I can block the truck. Well, okay. I'm going to keep on going because I know this thing goes for a while. And you can see the yellow sign up here. Where it curves in, it's way up there, so sometimes there are savvy motorists that will just... So this guy's leaving a break for me, other guy's taking it up. This is like football, you know? Where Brady's trying to throw the pass and you gotta figure out, okay, who's open? Throw the ball. And so will politeness here ensue? Or is my encroaching on their lane going to be a battle? Looks like I made it over. So now you want to straddle 2 lanes just to keep people from cutting you off. And it all works out. So this thing goes for about a mile, and then it backs up on Plainfield Road. And then you're free. If you can make it about a mile north of the 37 connector, you're good to go. You'll make it all the way up to 495 without an issue, probably. So anyway, here's what's left of our fall leaves. Not much. They're all brown, so I guess those are the oak trees that have gone brown. There's no reds left. I don't even see any green left, which you shouldn't see by now. There's a couple of yellows over there. This little valley here was really nice when it was first starting over and changing into there's some stuff there. I can't say it's glorious. There's some green over there still. Well, the green are evergreen trees, so there's a few deciduous trees that are still green. Anyway, it's a glorious day in New England. There's not going to be many days like this left in the year. 54 seems pretty warm right now. They're talking about a big cold wave coming in here, but they're even talking about snow. I guess it's snowing in the Midwest right now, so usually whatever weather comes into the Midwest can make it over here. We also get weather from the south coming up from Texas around here. We also get weather off the ocean sometimes. Those are called nor'easters because the wind's coming in from a northeast direction. That's the direction of the wind flowing into New England when there's a nor'easter. It comes from the northeast, which is probably west, or I'm sorry, east of Nova Scotia or somewhere. Well, that tree is awful pretty. The way the sun's hitting it is glorious. That's a really pretty tree. So the whole trick is here is to photograph and video record and not get into an accident. So yeah, this is my glorious morning commute. This is usually about a half an hour of time, which in the Bay Area would not be a bad commute. There's a siren. Okay, so a cop is chasing a guy in the right lane. Isn't that interesting? So that gentleman is deciding to evade the police in the right lane. And the police was in an unmarked black SUV. Looked like a Chevrolet or something. Let's see what happens up here, if the police got that guy or not. That's almost like, okay, there's another cop going down the right lane. This is almost like Los Angeles. Excitement on the 295, rivaling the 405 in LA. Let's see what happens up here. Here goes another unmarked cop car. So maybe those were all police, and maybe there's a wreck up here. The first car did not look like a police car. I figured that was a suspect, but you never know. I think for the most part, Rhode Island people are pretty content and don't cause civil unrest, but who knows? So, all right, here's a police car on the right. Let's see if they caught a suspect or what happened here. There's a cop walking, and hopefully he won't bust me for filming. He might. He was friendly. There's two cops there. There's a tow truck and might be a suspect. That was a wreck. Alright, so there was a wreck there. Tow truck on the scene. And since they're blocking all the traffic, I'm good to go. Which is great. On with my leaf people. So I'm picking up speed here. Good to go. Turnpike. These cars usually cause a big backup in the morning. But since that wreck is restricting traffic, there's no traffic now. So I am cool to sail through here. There's the big bump. They fixed that bump pretty well. That bump was really fearsome a few months ago. It's an expansion joint on a bridge. I actually wrote them about an expansion joint on the I-37 eastbound connector on the 295, and they actually fixed it with blacktop the next day, which surprised me, and they actually replaced the entire expansion joint to make it right, which that would never happen in California. So anyway, there's all of our leaves. They're sadly gone. It's getting into winter mode here. It might get to 60 out today though, which would be nice. That state policeman waved to me. I waved to him back. That would never happen in California, I don't think. At least not in the big cities. That was pretty cool. There's advantages to being in a small state. Yeah, the weather here is fantastic today. So this 295 south, the 3 lanes go to 2 lanes, and this causes a huge backup every time you see this thing. There's a 6 connector, or I would say overflow lane, or what do they call those in Toronto? Those lanes on the side. Anyway, people take that, and you can avoid the traffic sometimes depending on who's getting on the 6 to bypass the jam on I-295. This is even worse than when I come home on the southbound lane. But I'm just cruising along at a leisurely 60 with no worries. So this truck's a huge gas hog, and I try not to speed in this thing because it's old. It has a lot of miles on it. Sometimes it'll get like 21 mpg if I'm on a trip going to Massachusetts, but today it's not doing so well. I usually don't talk on these videos and just play some music on the WGBH Symphony channel, but then Google will flag me for having copyrighted music on the video. YouTube has a new feature now where I can tell YouTube to edit out the copyrighted sections and removes them, which is really cool. I haven't listened yet to see what would happen. I guess I could put on morning radio and see what that sounds like here.
For piano and orchestra with the English Chamber.
It's the Fall Providence Home Show. This Saturday 10 till 5 and Sunday 10 till 6. Right in the Rhode Island Convention Center. Check out Jen's Productions.
Convenes in January.
Well, he's probably going to have a caucus tomorrow night, at which he will bring the Democrats together. And
here's some of the PBS political stuff, so I hope you don't mind this. Here it comes.
When they reconvene, but as a practical matter, the party caucus, if he has the majority of the Democrats in a House that has only Republicans in single digits, There's no way he's not going to be speaker. He also has some little perks to hand out. One of them will be the Keeble seat, Cale Keeble up in Burrillville, who was chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and he went down to defeat after some sexual harassment allegations. So I think you'll see the speaker make a deal with some of the more malleable progressives. He'll make their life better. He'll give them better committee assignments, do things for their districts. And then the folks that he sees as too far left or intransigent, he can put them out in the cold. We call it in the legislature up at the State House. It's known as being in Siberia, which means you don't get very much.
Now, Scott, you mentioned the progressives, and while they may have increased their numbers in Rhode Island's General Assembly, they're without one of their biggest, or at least most visible champions, Aaron Regenberg.
That's right. Regenberg decided to run statewide for lieutenant governor. He narrowly lost in the primary, but...
Okay, so this is Rhode Island politics. This is a Rhode Island station, I think, which recently had a name change. I forget what they call it now, but it's a station serving Rhode Island and southeastern New England.
It's clearly in the hands of liberals.
Nationally, Republicans maintain control of the Senate while the Democrats took back the House. What does this mean for Rhode Island and Massachusetts?
Well, I think it's really going to mean a lot for the Democrats because the House is a very partisan place. And if you're not in the party that controls it, it really hurts you. You can't really get anything done. You have no clout. Now, David Cicilline from Rhode Island has gained some seniority, and he's already announced.
Now notice all the Italian names in Rhode Island. It's been this way probably for 20, 40, 50 years, and it's hanging on. It's amazing.
Now will move up. He'll be in the majority of the House Armed Services Committee, where he sits. That helps him when it comes to getting more submarine contracts for electric boat and some of our defense industry down in Aquidneck Island. So those are the kind of things that you do see, and I think you look at Massachusetts, they've got some people who've been there for a long time. Bill Keating won. People thought over in the Cape and the Islands and down through New Bedford. So Joe Kennedy III, the congressman in the famous Kennedy family, another Democrat, he'll move up in the House and have a lot more influence. So this will be good in the House for the overwhelmingly Democratic Rhode Island and Massachusetts delegations.
We have just a couple minutes left, but Scott, where do you see the gender gap and gender issues playing out in this midterm election results?
I think you saw women across the country winning House races. I think you saw many more women coming out and running, competing for office. And we see this all around the country. Even in local races, again, there will be 10 more women in Rhode Island in the General Assembly. So I think you're seeing this Me Too thing that we have and some of the sexual harassment stuff. I mean, the reason Cale Keeble lost up in Burrillville, he was a key member of Nick Mattiello's team. He's a Harvard-trained lawyer. He's a very bright guy, but here he was accused of sexually harassing a fellow colleague who was Representative Catherine Kazarian from East Providence, and he went down to a pretty big defeat by Republican David Place.
Scott McKay is political analyst for the Public's Radio. Scott, thanks for talking through the midterm election results for Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts.
Great to be here, Elizabeth.
Public service journalism for Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. This is the Public's Radio, 89.3 FM and HD WNPN in Newport. We're also heard on 102.7 FM and HD WNPE Narragansett Pier, 91.5 FM WCBY Coventry Public Schools, and on the 88.1 FM WELH, the Wheeler School of Providence. With support from Bagels, the Bagel Bakery, serving bagels, breakfast sandwiches, coffee, tea, nitro cold brew, deli sandwiches, soup, salad, and pastries. Wakefield and at URIBagelsRI.com. And Brown Physicians, Inc., providing patient care, medical education, and advances in research to promote better health for the people of Rhode Island and its surrounding communities. BrownPhysicians.org. ThePublicsRadio.org. This is the Public's Radio 89.3. Good morning It's Wednesday, November 7th. With Noel King and Steve Inskeep, I'm Chuck Hinman in Providence. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren returning to Washington. She got about 60% of the vote yesterday.
You took that chance. You sent me into the fight. And tonight, you told me to stay in the fight.
In this week's This I Believe New England essay, Barrington resident Henri Flickier reflects on the importance of paying attention. Democrats have captured the House in Washington. We hear reaction from the Democratic National Committee Chair, Tom Perez. And in Georgia's race for governor, former state lawmaker Stacey Abrams vowing not to concede until every vote is counted. It's 8:01. We begin with this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Results from this year's midterm elections show that Democrats and Republicans can each claim victories. Democrats are going to seize control of the House of Representatives, while Republicans will keep their majority in the Senate. Both parties won governor's races on Tuesday. In Georgia, the race is still too close to call between Democrat Stacey Abrams and Republican Brian Kemp. In Florida, the winner of the gubernatorial contest there is Republican Ron DeSantis. His win gives Republicans a boost in the battleground state ahead of the 2020 election. From member station WMFE, Amy Green reports.
Florida's gubernatorial race between former Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis and Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum was neck and neck until late in the evening. DeSantis had aligned himself closely with President Donald Trump. Gillum had run as an unabashed liberal. Term limits prevented Republican Governor Rick Scott from seeking re-election. The governor instead sought Democratic Senator Bill Nelson's seat. DeSantis' victory continues a long winning streak for Republicans in Florida. The last time a Democrat was elected governor was in 1994. For NPR News, I'm Amy Green.
Well, some notes in this truck. This thing every few days would give me problems with the drivetrain. Something in the drivetrain was jerking. It felt like a U-joint. It felt like an axle or something. So I replaced the right axle, which didn't need replacing, but I did that anyway as I was desperate to figure out a solution. I didn't have the axle in all the way, pushed in all the way where the circlip would have seated in the differential, and drove it that way for a day. That morning it did make some jerking, severe jerking, and so I thought, well, okay. And that night I noticed a puddle under the truck where differential fluid was leaking out, so I was lucky enough to crawl under there, and I was able to remove the hub nut on the right front wheel and get a 4-pound hammer and tap that axle in, and the problem was solved. I put some more 90 weight Mobil 1 gear oil into the differential at my friend's house on that weekend, and that solved that problem. So anyway, getting back to the truck jerking in the morning with drivetrain problems, I would say about 2 weeks ago I crawled under the truck, and somebody had mentioned on the Mercedes board in one of the forums that the drive shaft carrier bearing, the center bearing on the rear drive shaft, is critical to get that thing centered right, and there were a lot of commentaries on that. I was kind of poo-pooing it, thinking, oh gee, you know, how critical is it going to be to center this thing? And I guess it was critical. So people were saying you had to mark it when you took it off, and know exactly where it was when you replaced the center bearing, and I never marked it, I just replaced it. You know, I didn't mark it, I didn't even balance the drive shaft. You know, it's like, who has money and time for all that? So anyway, I would get the car jerking every 3 or 4 days, severe jerking. You're going 40 or 50 and the thing would feel like it's going to fall apart. So one person on Mercedes forum had said, if you simply loosen up the 2 bolts that hold on the carrier bearing, or the center bearing's carrier plate, so that you could move it, but it's hard to move, but yet it moves, and then just run the car down the road, the drive shaft rotating and the U-joint changing the angular velocity of the drive shaft will cause a torque on that center plate and cause it to move into where it's comfortable, meaning that it will move to a point where the the vibration is less, meaning that when this thing vibrates from being off center, the vibration itself will move the center plate into position. So I just ran it from the hotel about an eighth of a mile down the road at 60 miles an hour, did a U-turn at Woods Tavern or something, and just did a beeline back to the hotel, crawled back under there, tightened up those bolts, and it's been now 3 weeks since I've had any problems with this truck, with the drivetrain. It's been running solid. It hasn't been making racket or jerking in the morning or scaring the heck out of me. So I kept thinking it was a rear U-joint, but it turned out not to be. And I went under there after a trip to the hotel, which is about a 30-mile drive one way, and I was putting my hand on the 4 bearing cups on the rear U-joint, and one of them was warm and the others were cold. So I think the U-joint has some life left in it. I couldn't get that U-joint out to change it anyway. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I'm where I need to go. Have a great day. Take care.